Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of your baseball. Today's episode is going to bring some great insight because we're talking to a guy that quite literally just left coaching college baseball. Cody Church was the head coach of Maryville College before stepping down to take the job. Exposure baseball is one of the top travel ballers in the state of Tennessee in the last several years. And as you learn from Cody, they are looking to long state lines of Tennessee. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. Welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. Today's episode takes us down to the great state of Tennessee. This is going to be a fun episode. I think we're going to get a little different perspective. Bring in a guy that just left the college coaching ranks. So many of the questions, many of the conversations, many of the topics in this conversation probably hit on from the perspective of a college coach. So today we're talking to Cody Church, and Cody has joined up with Exposure Baseball. You guys are Exposure Baseball. That's run by Brandon. Might have to have Brandon on the call soon, but I saw the news just a handful of weeks ago that Cody was looking on with Exposure. It's a great opportunity to try and get a college football. So, Cody, welcome to Travel Ball.
Hey, good. We have that picture.
Listen, I know you've left the college coaching world, and I'll let you kind of tell your story a little bit, but I appreciate you carving out some time to have this conversation. So for those of you who don't know Cody, you can obviously, like everybody else on here, you can go just look up Cody Church on Twitter. I've been following Cody for a long time. I think I first kind of hooked on with what he was doing when he was down at Tennessee Tech, and then he was the head guy over at Maryville College for the last several years, but I don't want to step on your toes. Let me hand you the mic, and if you would, just kind of go through your quick bio for the listeners, Cody.
Yeah. I played college baseball. I played at Rowan State Community College for a year. I transferred to Lincoln Memorial University up in Harrogate, Tennessee. So graduated from there. Started doing the camp circuit a little bit, like a lot of people that want to get into college coaching, and was beyond blessed, was able to get a full-time Division I job kind of right out of the gate at Presbyterian College with Coach Pollock, and just an unbelievable experience there. Learned so much, was probably way over my head early on, and we were able to have a little bit of success that year and won some big games, and ended up getting a job that summer at Tennessee Tech University, which allowed me to move back a little closer to home. My wife and I were able to get back to Tennessee, which was awesome. We had a great couple of years there and won an OVC championship, and that's actually where I worked with Brandon Turner at. He was our recruiting coordinator when I was at Tennessee Tech, and after a couple of years there, he got out and started the Exposure, and I accepted the job at Maryville College, and did that for 5 years. It was awesome. It was kind of the town the next town over from where I grew up, and really loved that. We had such a great run there over 5 years, and really have done a lot of good things with the facility, and just had some success as well. So wasn't an easy thing to leave, but I sure enjoyed every minute of coaching college baseball.
Well, you kind of buried the lead, because as I was reading through, one of these bios on you, I noticed that at Lincoln Memorial that you performed in the classroom at a pretty high level. The bio I read says cum laude in accounting. So I knew some folks that could read and write at a high level, and they all got big time jobs. Those accounting folks got pretty big time jobs with pretty big time salaries. How were some of the accounting firms coming after you at that time, and how did you how did you come to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm going to go work for no money instead of getting a job making whatever.
No, you're dead on. That summer, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. Graduation was coming up, and I knew I wanted to be involved in the game. I just didn't know how realistic, I just didn't know. And so I was going on all these, and I was engaged to be married. So that summer I was spending time, doing the resumes, going on interviews, and I had some offers with some like financial firms or accounting firms, and I would like go in and they would be like, hey, just shadow this guy, for the day. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't see myself being there doing that, and again, financially, yes, I'd probably be in a much different place, over the last 8 to 10 years than I am now, but it just wasn't something I was passionate about, so I probably could have done something a lot more beneficial to be a college coach than accounting would have been. But, so it was like that summer I made the decision, and my plan was I was going to go be a graduate assistant in the department that I did my work study when I was a student at Lincoln Memorial. And long story short, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go to LMU. I'll be a GA here, volunteer on the baseball staff, get my MBA, and then hopefully through that time figure out what the heck it is I actually want to do here. And that summer I was kind of bouncing around with those camps, and that's when, again, just some doors opened up that I don't really know why they did. I was just, incredibly lucky, incredibly blessed, and just kind of kick-started things, and then a lot of things kind of took off really quickly for me, and I never looked back. So it's kind of funny how things work out for sure.
Yeah, and you never ended up doing a graduate assistant position?
Never did.
Straight into a paid position?
I did. We actually moved to Harrogate, which is where LMU was, that summer. So like June, we moved up there, and we moved in like August. So we that was a hassle in itself, trying to get out of a lease while we were living in South Carolina. I mean, we've all been there. It's just, and in college coaching, you got to be willing that, when something pops up, if you want it, you got to be willing to get up and go for sure.
Yep. That's funny. Before we hit record, we mentioned, I was telling you about a buddy of mine that was in coaching for a long time. And so he was kind of fortunate enough to do a graduate assistant position, which unfortunately in today's coaching environment, those are few and far between. And most people listening to this right now probably don't even know what it really was. But I mean, the short version of what graduate assistant position was is instead of getting a paycheck, you're getting to take classes. That's sort of the long and short of it. But this guy, my buddy that was in coaching for a while, he picked up an MBA like you were planning on doing, but he had no intention of going into business. He wanted to be a pitching coach his whole life, at least he did back then. But he threw his resume out there on whatever it was at the time, monster.com or whatever. Right. And he had all the banks calling him, all these companies calling him. And he would joke around and say, well, do you have any pitching coach positions open? Because that's what I'm looking for right now. So, that's I wish we could get more grad assistant positions out there, man. It's too bad. I think it would help a lot of young coaches, and that third assistant who's making not a whole lot of money. They're long term. They're the $15,000 that some little school would pay them is not nearly as valuable as an MBA would be in the long term for their life. But anyway, we go off on a tangent there. But ironically, you met along that route is when you met Brandon Turner, and then kind of full circle 6-7 years later, you're back together with him. So to catch us up on kind of how the last kind of 6 months of your life, you were still at Maryville, and then something happened, and you decided to leave college coaching, at least for the time being. Can you fill in whatever you feel comfortable filling in for us?
Sure. No, it was, again, we really enjoyed our time at Maryville College. It wasn't necessarily something that we were, trying to find a way out of at all. An opportunity kind of presented itself outside of baseball, in a sales role that deals with team sports, and it made a lot of sense for me. We've got a young boy, just turned 2, our son, and it made a lot of sense at the time, for a lot of different reasons. But the one thing that I knew the moment I made that decision was I was going to have to find a way to stay involved in the game. I love baseball. I love the people aspect that the game brings and the people you get to meet. And so when I kind of made that leap of faith, and left college coaching behind, the first phone call I made was, even before news broke, was to Brandon. He was, I owe a lot, honestly, of my career to what he's done. When I was at Presbyterian College, Brandon was an assistant at Tennessee Tech, and he had a lot to do. We used to recruit a lot together back in those days, and he had a lot to do with me being able to get a foot in the door at Tennessee Tech. And so I've kind of, we've kept up. Obviously, we've got a friendship, and, getting to see what his organization has grown to and 5 years' time is unbelievable. So I was able to get on with him. It's a neat role. I'm actually the scouting director for the Exposure West team, which is a team that they kind of put together for a few tournaments out in Phoenix every year. But also I'm coaching a 14-under team, which is we've got practice tonight. But that's a new challenge. I'm enjoying that though, because when I got the team, I'm like, I don't even know what a good 14-under team looks like. So it's a completely different dynamic of coaching baseball, and really enjoying that challenge for sure.
Yeah, coaching 14-year-olds is probably a little bit different than coaching 20-year-olds.
Yep, no doubt.
What have you been out on the field a few times already with them?
Yeah, we've been out a few times. We've got our first tournament this weekend, so I'm Lord, we'll see. I have no idea where we match up. I think it's a pretty good team from what I hear and from what I think I know. But we're going down to Atlanta this weekend, so we'll get our first little test there. But again, it's definitely been different. You have to coach a little differently. You have to explain.
How so?
They're learning a lot. I think in the college game, typically guys, you kind of know what you're getting when you recruit them. I think you kind of try and go out in the recruiting process and know what you're looking for in a certain position. And I don't think there's necessarily as much teaching, in the college game. There is some, but by that point, like a guy's swing, a lot of times is a guy's swing, or, it's more of managing people, I think, in college baseball as much as anything. Doing this, having a 14-under team, you really get back to the grassroots of baseball a little bit, and really teach them and really talk to them about the game. And, I'm lucky that a lot of these kids have played a ton of baseball already. But, they're hungry. They're wanting to learn. They're wanting to, learn about the recruiting process and learn what they've got to do to get on, college coaches' radars. And as the whole recruiting process continues to get sped up for them, they're not far away from being in the middle of that, to be honest with you. And I know that's kind of crazy to think about, that these guys are 14 years old and having to worry about that. But that's the nature of the beast a little bit right now.
Yeah, that is kind of on the one hand, I feel like, man, guys, take a deep breath. But on the other hand, you know what? If it's, especially from the mom and dad as well as the player, if it's, hey, we know this is coming down the line, and it might be 12 months, it might be 24 months, it might be 36 months for some of us, but we want to gather information. Well, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You can never start gathering information too early, and if you can start educating yourself on the process. But gosh, Lee, there's a big difference between education and gathering information and like wanting to seal the deal. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So hopefully this crew, not only your guys, but these teams that you're going to be that you're going to be competing with. Hopefully, they can kind of pump the brakes a little bit and stay calm. What's practice with 14U look like? And compare and contrast versus what you're used to at the college level.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to get a little more laid back. I think we're on our second practice, and we're trying to just keep it really simple right now. Because most of our guys are playing middle school ball as well, and so what we don't want to do is just keep them overkill. Where they're just dreading coming to us. So we're trying to keep it laid back, enjoyable, and tonight we'll probably go through a little bit more than we did last week. Just truly making sure they know where to be on certain situations, that cuts and tandems, or just little things like that. But it's just reps right now. We're not college baseball. You do a lot. You're out there a heck of a lot longer than the hour and a half we're out there with these 14-year-old kids, and there's just so much more you've got to go through to be prepared for a college season. And I think especially at the Division III level in the fall, you're so handcuffed with 4 weeks of fall practice that 4 weeks those are long days, because you've got to get through a lot of evaluation, a lot of teaching, a lot of just reps to kind of get a feel for your team, and you're trying to cram all that into 16 practices, and that's hard on those guys, and that's so we're trying to not take that route with these young guys at all.
So you bring up an interesting point that maybe some listeners at home aren't super familiar with. Can you just clarify what you mean by the 16 days and the 4 weeks?
Yeah. So Division III baseball, they allow in the fall, and this is mandated by the NCAA, 16 practices over the course of 4 weeks. So you can kind of do that, however you want to do that. How I had done it at Maryville with our team was we would just go 4 days a week for 4 weeks. And, a lot of our guys worked, game management or, different things around campus on the weekend. So if we tried to cram a lot of that in, during the week, to be honest with you. And it was, you go to class all day, then you're at the field all night. It's, that 4 weeks is definitely not an easy period for the coaches or for the players, but to do it right, there's a lot you've got to get through. And, they don't have the luxury of, say, Division I baseball that gets the small group work kind of, prior to fall practice really kicking off. And so a lot of that comes down to guys being willing to get their reps in and get in shape on their own, in open facility time. And then, just really getting to go through a crash course there for 4 weeks time.
The way you described it, I would say, is pretty much par for the course, at least with the D3s that I'm familiar with up here in Virginia. Yeah. The 4 days for 4 weeks, pretty standard operating procedure. And the only other thing you'll see mixed into the mix is sometimes there's probably a lot of times captain run practices that will be done player only, outside of the supervision of the college coaches. But right. It's still a D3. It's still a pretty rigorous schedule, long days and good competition, and everybody wants to win. Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that piece up. Let's go back to your little guys. Now you're back. I say little guys, but some of these dudes are not so little, are they? These 14-year-olds. You were telling me a little bit about the growth of some of these kids that are on your field. Talk to me about that.
14-year-old is a weird age group, because you've got some guys that look like they're 12, and you got some guys that look like they're 20 already. I think at this age group, guys are just really starting to go through some physical changes, and a lot of our guys, I can tell you, I didn't look like that at 14 at all. I was just a little kid, happy to be on the team, to be honest with you. But the game is. I tell you, a lot of people, they're they get angry, and because certain kids want to specialize in certain sports, and I'm all for guys doing as much as they want to. If they want to play 10 sports, play 10 sports. But some of these kids love baseball, and I don't fault them for that. And I tell you, through that, you do see some really advanced players at the younger age groups. I was hitting ground balls to some of our guys last week, and again, I didn't really know what to expect, but some of those kids, like their actions, and I'm not bragging on our team. I'd say this is every 14-year-old team that's out there. Like there's some kids with some actions that are like very advanced, and again, I try and think back to myself at 14. I know I didn't look like that at all. So I think there's good and bad with kids specializing so early, but I think the good is it can be good. You just hope they don't do it overkill, and then they're just exhausted with it. By the time their high school careers are over with.
Yeah, that's the easy knock on the specialization is the burnout factor.
Yeah.
And then also from a physical standpoint, it's the physical burnout from repetitive motion
Right.
that can create injury. I'm no sports doctor or anything. We have to get Cressy to talk about some of those repetitive motion injuries. But golly, we want to. You see a culture of old guys like us who knock some of these younger kids, and we call them the video game kids or Fortnite or whatever. But then you watch them on the field and you say, "Oh, that kid's way better than I was at his age."
Right. Right.
And I think part of it is this culture of private lessons. Right, and they're repeating these motions and having somebody kind of stand and looking over their shoulders. There's another piece to it. I think there's just this. There's so much information at their fingertips, whether that be about strength and conditioning, whether that be about nutrition, those types of things. I mean, one of the things I notice when I get on a field with a big group of players is the sheer size of these kids. They seem so big to me, and golly, it really blows me away. That's the first thing is when you're in the stands, it doesn't hit you, and then you walk down to the field and you go, whoa. I'm the size of the smallest kid out here. I'm not out there with many 14-year-olds. Okay, I'm more that high school crew, but then a lot of the actions are very clean and advanced. Some of them they still maybe lack a little arm speed or foot speed or just strength in general. But you say, man, that kid has a future. You can see it.
Yeah.
So when you got talking a little bit about these kids are already starting to feel this sense, or maybe they have this goal that's just down the road of college baseball. What are some of the things that you're talking to the player about, but then also to moms and dads? Like, I know you've only been with them a short time, but maybe it's not what do you tell them, but what do you anticipate some of the conversations being with this crew of players at 14 moving into 15?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, a lot of it, to be honest with you, what we're talking about is, one thing that exposure baseball does is they play the best tournaments they can find, because I think that's where, at the end of the day, that's where the colleges are going to be, and if colleges are going to be down in, Atlanta watching every weekend, then that's where our guys need to be. And, because I think that's all you can do is at this age is just really start, trying to get in front of some people, and even if the talks don't start yet, you do find your way onto some, follow lists and things like that. So I think at this age, it's just, playing the game hard, having fun, and letting the chips kind of fall where they're going to. I don't think they're in a place right now where they need to be worried about the recruiting side. They just have to be playing the game the right way and let everything else kind of take care of itself.
I I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you. Right, especially at this age. Now, as they continue down the road for another 12 to 18 months, the topics, the things they need to be doing will change a little bit. But at the end of the day, right now, play the game hard, play the game right, have fun and have fun doing it. Let's I think some of this stuff is going to be really from your perspectives from being a college coach for the better part of the last decade. But what are some of the things that you saw as a college coach that were huge turn-ons, as things that players did that just really got you excited about them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is the physical tools, and just the look of a kid, how he, physically, but also how he plays the game. I mean, those are things that I think immediately jump out to you. If a kid's got bat speed, you see that. If a kid's got, great actions on the infield, like those physical attributes are the things that scream out to you, at first.
Yeah, those are easy. What's next? Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that they're. My wife could go to the field and pick out who the best players are. But the hard part becomes, and I do some recruiting talks with teams, and it's some things I always tell them. Say you're looking for a third baseman, and you, as a college coach, you go down to East Cobb and you go down to Lake Point, you go down to all these big tournaments, and the amount of third basemen that are out there is astronomical. They can play the game, at the college level. So I think then you start trying to find those next factors, and I think that kind of varies from school to school, like the ideal makeup of a kid, whether it be, like at Maryville, we needed some academic guys, that mattered. And it mattered a lot to be able for those guys to be able to afford the school, being able to, not having athletic scholarships. And if a guy was going to be able to make it work financially, he needed to be able to get a good academic scholarship. So you start kind of working your way down that list of, does he fit academically? Does he fit socially? I was always a big fan of, kind of getting out of the stands behind the radar gun and really getting down on field level and hearing how they, communicate on the field. Are they the leader on that team? Are they, just the intangible pieces that, are going to really be able to separate themselves once they're on that college roster? Because I think if you're a guy that's just kind of, along for the ride on a travel ball team, those guys can get lost in the shuffle really quickly in college baseball. But even more so than that, and I tell guys this, and I think it's 100% true, is, social media and stuff. You start trying to find reasons to not like a guy. Yeah. Because if you've got 30 third basemen on your list, if a kid ever listens to this podcast, I hope they hear this part. Like, don't make yourself look like a liability, on social media by what you post, because, what you don't want to do is you spend all this money, playing travel ball and going to camps and going to showcases, and, all the things line up for you, that this school has a need. You're the type of player they need in that spot. And then they go check your social media and you're a bonehead, and then they scratch you off your list. You just don't want, that mistake to cost you an opportunity that could potentially change your life for the better.
It seems like so one of the huge benefits of the kind of the current state of travel baseball, the organization of it has made it so efficient for coaches and for players. They can see so many kids can get in front of so many coaches, all good. That's very different than 25 years ago when a couple coaches would show up at an American Legion field, and that was kind of it.
Right.
But you've seen a kid 15 times, and you've seen lots of kids 15 or 20 times. You do begin looking for you get a little nitpicky, I think is a way to describe it. I'll tell you, a lot of the coaching I do with families and with players is all the positive stuff is easy. Everybody knows those things, right? The hard 90s, the looking like the dressing the part, those things. A lot of it is let's not shoot ourselves in the foot by some of those things that you already mentioned. But when some of it comes down to you want to be the last man standing because the coach has a long list of guys. Any one of these guys can get plugged in. They all fit what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. We're just this is where we get nitpicky and start scratching guys off the list. You know, and I hope if there's mom or dad or a coach could pass this along to their program and say, listen, I mean, I don't know how many times we need to tell teenagers not to tweet stupid stuff, but they seem to continue to want to do it. Here's a question for you. You might have to go dig into this. You may want to go this weekend in between ball games. Have you asked to get a raise of hands of how many of those kids on your team are on the different social media platforms?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. You know, I would say our guys are probably, I don't know. I haven't got that age is probably a little early, but there's probably some that are, to be honest with you. You know, I think once they get into high school, that kind of becomes the norm. You know, most of our guys all of them are in the 8th grade, so they may not quite be, dabbling with that yet, but I would imagine some of them have already started.
Yeah. Worth kind of taking a straw poll with that age group. So from from the college coach's perspective over the last 3 to 5 years, let's talk about the current state of travel baseball, the kind of the good, bad, and the ugly. What were some of the things that were your most favorite? The things that made your life easier, and where would be some maybe opportunities for improvement, whether that be for a team or for a tournament organization or any way you want to run with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good, and I think I'm fully aware that, there's a lot of people out there that for whatever reason are opposed, but I think there's so much good, and I look at it from a perspective of, first I'll start as a Division III coach, because I think that's where my most recent experience was. It allowed us to really maximize the recruiting budget, because we couldn't just go, if there, like you're saying, if there's a Legion game, we couldn't bounce from city to city to see a single game or a single kid. So what it allowed us to do, I mean, we could go to, Worldwood Bat in Atlanta, go spend 3 days down there and kind of take a few guys from our staff and, 200 and some teams down there in 1 week's time. I mean, you could go to that one event and probably knock out half your recruiting class and not be something that you just threw together. Like you saw the best players in the country playing against each other in one spot.
Yeah.
So I think stuff like that, I mean, if you want to go see, the best teams or the best players in Tennessee, you could probably pick out, just a very small handful of teams and at least get to see probably the upper 90% of the players in that state. And there's always some that are playing, maybe they're not playing summer baseball or fall baseball because they're a football guy or because they're a basketball player or they're, just playing on a local team or, so there's outliers in that. But for the most part, a lot of the filtering of the recruiting process is kind of done on the front end by a lot of these summer ball coaches that have a pretty good feel.
Yeah.
It really allows you to go ahead.
Let me jump in there. When you when you were heading down there and you had a couple guys on your staff heading down there and you divide and conquer, was it we're just going to go to random games, or there's a specific kid that we need to go see, or maybe a little zoomed out a little bit, there's a specific team we need to see, and there's a plan in place where each guy's going to go each day?
Yeah, so what we normally did is, because the schedule comes out about a week prior, So we would sit in the office for hours trying to map out, because there was probably, we'll say, 20 teams that you knew you had to see.
Sure.
Through maybe past recruiting experiences, maybe a player you needed to see. So you try and map that out, and then you try and cross them up with it. Like if you could see two of them at once,
yes,
or maybe they match up, that's a win-win. But recruiting's funny. A lot of times maybe you need to go see, this team that, you've heard a lot of good things about them, and then you like guys on the team they're playing, and I think that's where your recruiting network really grows. And we always did attack it. I think that tournament, if you don't really go down there with a plan, you're going to spin yourself in circles down there.
Yeah.
Now, usually it'll rain, and then it makes you start over about a day or two into it. But
you start with a plan, but the plan changes.
It does. And we always try to get creative. We wouldn't, you can go sit at Lake Point, and there's games going on all over the place. But I was a big fan of trying to find some of those side fields where, you might be able to be only one or two college coaches there, and you can really see someone have some success and have a shot at them. But, for us being a smaller school, if we were sitting at Lake Point and a guy, hit a double, for example, there's 25 other colleges there. And then those schools start feeling pressure, against each other, to try and make a run at that boy. And, so you got to get creative down there. That's a tough week as a college coach, but it's a really fun week too, because you're seeing the best kids across the country.
While you're talking about that, it just makes me think about self-evaluation and how important that is from the player's perspective, but then also at that level as a college coach. Listen, if you're attached at the hip to some school in the SEC, and you follow him around all week, and you're coaching at Division III Maryville, you're probably fishing in the wrong pond. Right. So there's a level of self-evaluation and understanding, the type of kid you've had success with in the past, the type of kid that that's helped y'all win, and you figure out where's that kid going to be, and disconnect yourself from following around what other people are doing.
Right.
I think there's a lesson in there for the travel ball coach as well as the prospects.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
What? So you obviously listen. The organization of it, the efficiency of it, the current state of travel baseball has been unbelievable. Were there ever times where you looked around and you just question yourself and you go, what are we doing? If we did it this way, if we tweaked one little thing, this whole thing would get a little bit better. Did you ever see any opportunities for improvement?
I mean, there's certain things that you see as a coach, like you see some arms that, and they're doing what they need to do. So this is going to sound negative, and I think it's just where the system is. I don't want to say broken, but it's a little overkill. Where, I remember a couple of years ago, you see a kid pitch in a summer ball tournament, and he throws well, and then you see him, you'd see him at this camp, like 2 days later pitching, and then you'd see him at another showcase camp 2 days later, and it's like they're doing what they feel like they have to do. So I don't fault the kids one bit on that.
Yeah.
They're trying to get, because at the end of the day, to get recruited, college coaches have to see you, and I know you and I have already spoken about that, but if you're hurt, it don't matter if they see you, So I think there's such a fine line that these kids and the parents are trying to kind of maneuver through these waters, and it is tough though. And I think that's one thing that, and I don't want to say that's a bad thing on travel ball, because that's not, if they're just pitching the travel ball tournament, they're fine. So I don't blame travel ball coaches, but I don't blame the college coaches for having camps. I think some of these guys are just getting drugged around internally, thinking they have to be at everything.
Yep. I got the solution, Mom and Dad. If you're listening, this is on you. And here's how you fix this before the season starts. So you can do it today. You can do it at any point in time when you're listening to this. You pull out and you make a gigantic calendar, okay?
Yeah.
And you lay out the next season of baseball, and on that calendar you're putting the things that you know are 100% commitments. I'm going to be at that because I've already committed to that team. So all the team practices and games go down your calendar. And then you can add a level down. Here's opportunities, camps, and showcases that I'm going to consider. And you lay them all out on your calendar. And you do that in a different color, okay? And then you can begin to map out where the ones that make sense. And you can start to see if you got a week and you got, 4 different events you're trying to go to, that doesn't make any sense if you're an arm, if you're a pitcher,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Right.
so if you can look at this from a bird's eye view by actually putting it on a calendar ahead of time, you can avoid this type of thing. You can avoid the conflicts, and it doesn't even. Nobody's going to get upset or hurt at you if somebody invites you to a camp. You say, I'd love to come. I can come, but I can't pitch. Because I'm pitching the day before or the day after and I'm already committed to that. Nobody's going to be mad at you. There's plenty of opportunities to get in front of coaches. There's no lack in 2019, 2020. There's no lack of opportunities, because of the format of travel baseball. But, yeah, I've seen that same thing, man, and I think a simple paper calendar fixes that very easily on the side of mom and dad and the player, though. This is this is not the showcase's fault. It's not the tournament's fault. It's not the college camp's fault. It's, hey, take some ownership. Take some ownership of it. This is cool. Now you were telling me, I want to talk about exposure a little bit. You were telling me about obviously a lot of your guys for the summer and fall teams. Those are a lot of Tennessee guys with some other guys mixed in, but then you guys are putting together a West team, Exposure West. Now that's not Western Tennessee, correct?
No,
all right, talk to me about this Exposure West and kind of what y'all do and kind of what the overall goal of this Exposure West program is.
Yeah, no, we our first tournament is actually coming up. September 13th. We'll be out in Phoenix, and that's been a lot of fun helping put that team together. It's really been myself, Brandon Turner, like I said, our owner, and then Dylan Boshears, who's our national scouting director, who actually played at Tennessee Tech. When Brandon and I were coaching there, so it's kind of been a lot of fun. Working with those two guys and helping putting this team together, but. We're pretty lucky. We've got some eyes out in Phoenix. That's what they spend time doing, helping us as well. But really, we've got guys that are committed, to all places all over the country. A lot of them are, guys from, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. They've had some success with some guys from Nevada, in the last couple of years doing it. But then we've got, a couple guys sprinkled in, in random parts of the country, at the Midwest and stuff. So we'll go out there September 13th, play that tournament. We'll go back MLK weekend. And it really just allows us to grow our brand nationally, and that's a lot of fun because you get to see guys and get to meet players from different parts of the country, get to meet college coaches from different parts of the country because now you're getting out of your comfort zone of the Southeast, and I think that's a lot of why Brandon decided to do it, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but we've all got our network of people here that, and you look at a lot of where the prime teams in this area wind up, playing the SEC and the SEC. But this allows us to kind of just get away from that every now and then and really spread our wings and get to meet guys, in the West Coast conferences. So we've got guys going to Mountain West schools, going to Pac-12 schools, going to, really all over the country. And that allows us to, when we have a kid that, even from out here that really say he has dreams of playing out West, we hopefully have those relationships built that we can make that phone call.
So, in a nutshell, if I'm following correctly, this is a team, not necessarily Tennessee-based team, but it's a team of guys from just about anywhere,
Yeah,
and you're playing in events that are going to be more West Coast based.
that's correct. Yeah, so we spend a few months really, watching a lot of video, talking to a lot of coaches, having some eyes out there that we trust, and we put it together like you would recruit a college team too. You're trying to find the best players in the country that can go help you compete, in the West Championships out there. So it's again, it's been a new challenge for me.
Obviously, if you're a pretty good player, from Texas, you're probably hooked on with a travel team for the rest of the year. Is this a situation where you might pick up a kid just for this specific event?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our guys will be on the same. They'll go out. In September they'll join us that MLK weekend. A lot of these guys are probably already on a power summer team in their respective state or region. Yep. But the ones that we get a lot of times are either one looking to meet guys from a new area, because that's important to kids too. They want to meet people from different parts of the country. They want to, get to expand their personal brand a little bit, but also some of these guys just maybe their team doesn't do a fall team, or they only do summertime.
Yeah.
So we've got a little blend of that. Some guys were just looking for new opportunities. Some are just looking to play because maybe their team they played with last summer, isn't offering that for them this fall.
Got it. Well, if hopefully this thing will come out in time, and if somebody hears it and a kid comes to mind who seems like they might fit, and where are those two events? One's in Phoenix. Where's the other one? Is that also
the other one's in Phoenix as well?
So yeah. you're basically heading to Phoenix a couple times this fall to play some big tournaments and a lot of really good kind of Western based travel teams.
Yeah, and I tell you that we've had some really good players, come through that organization. We have a lot of guys playing, professional baseball right now that have come through that Exposure West deal. So we're excited. It's again we've got some really good commitments on that team, and I'm excited to see them, wearing our jersey and competing a little bit.
Well, I tell you, that's a little different spin on things. I kind of like it. It's pretty interesting to hear about. And if nothing else, I think your take on it from growing your network and growing the network of Turner and the rest of Exposures, that's a pretty good take on it. To get out there and you'll shake hands with college coaches that are new contacts for you.
Right.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Well, let me ask you. I usually will wrap up with this, and I've enjoyed having you on today. By the way, this will all be over at playinschool.com/church.
Okay.
But let me ask you. You're talking to a young coach, a young guy who's thinking about getting into coaching. What kind of advice do you give that fella? Whether college or travel.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk more for college, at first, because if you love it, just find a way to do it, and that's the truth. Everybody, I think a lot of people get into it and they're like, well, I just can't do it, financially early on. I'm telling you, your first job is going to be atrocious financially, and that's just, it doesn't matter where you're at, but
don't sugarcoat things now.
Well, it's just what it is, but that's okay, because what you find though, no matter what you do, I look back to my wife and I, when we were Presbyterian. I mean, I was a full-time coach, but I was on a part-time salary, and I know the situation has changed a lot there, since I was there 8 years ago, but those were some of the best years of our lives, or a year of our life. I mean, it was, we didn't have a whole lot, but, as a young married couple, it was awesome. I wouldn't trade that year for anything. And, so you make it work, and then you just hope that, you catch that break, down the road. And the only way you do that is by really enjoying where you are, really trying to do it right and not be worried about what the next job may be. If you do it right, you're going to get blessed with a new opportunity down the road when the time is right. So it's definitely not luxury living your first job, probably your second job, or probably your third job, but it's worth it. The impact you get to make, the people you get to meet. I tell everybody, I don't know that I have one friend in my life that I haven't met through baseball at some point, whether it be I played with them, I coached against them, I coached with them, played against them. Baseball, it just allows you to meet so many great people. It allows you to see so many places that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. So if it's what you want to do and you love it, you'll never regret taking that leap of faith and seeing what happens.
Right on. Doesn't get much better than that, Cody. I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely.
Any other parting words before we get going here?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. Really, your company's done a lot of great things for our sport. I remember, I still, out recruiting, I see those playing school hats all over the place. Your brand is growing as well. I can promise you that.
Well, don't mention those too much. Those are VIP. Those aren't for sale. So I don't want everybody going to the website to order. They are not available. VIP only.
I've got one in my closet for what it's worth. I can promise you that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So well, listen. Hang on the line a second. I'm gonna stop record, but hang on one second. I appreciate it. And again, if you made it this far, you can find all the links, and I'm gonna link up to Exposure and to Cody's Twitter, and you'll be able to find all that over at playinschool.com/church.